we're going to be watching Attila, who's playing Moira. Right now, in the team comp, we have Hanzo, Echo, whatever the fuck this is going to be, Doomfist, and Moira. In the enemy team, we have Winston, Reaper, Mercy, Hanzo, and Lucio. They actually have a pretty good comp, I would say. I would argue that right now, their comp is slightly better than ours, unless you get a Mercy. Then I think we're better. Yeah, chat, for those who don't really enjoy educational content and VoD reviews like this, you can come back in like 30 minutes or so. That's when the VoD usually ends. But if you guys are wanting to get better at the game and you're a support player, there might be something here for you. But anyways, let's start and get it going. Before we start, chat, before we start, it's been 3 hours and 40 minutes. It's time for your daily 3 check. Full send it.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Objective unlocks in 30 seconds.
Wait, hold on. Are there ads? Is there ads right now? I don't think there's ads. My button isn't glowing. My Twitch button is not glowing, so there shouldn't be any ads. There's not? Okay, good. I was double checking because I can tell when there's ads now because they finally gave us a button that shows when there's ads and not. Okay, good.
Hello. No.
Greetings.
No.
Alright, I'm going balls to the wall here. Okay.
Offer something more. Objective unlocked. My power grows. Enhancing your powers.
I'm paying attention to your positioning right now. I'm already seeing a couple things, but I wanna see if it's like a reoccurring pattern before I say something.
Taking the lead. Stop them.
One thing I need to be very mindful of, if you're playing Moira, one of the strongest tools in the game to get away from a fight and actually survive is your shift, right? Your shift is actually your playmaker, and one thing I see a lot of Moira players do, and this is something that happened twice now, so I think this is going to be a reoccurring thing, but you need to stop engaging with shift. That should never be a tool for engaging. It should always be a tool for mid-fight, shenanigans, or in case of wanting to escape, right? The reason why I point this out is that while I know what rank you're in, and it might work here to engage with it, when you start climbing and eventually you get better, this is things that a player like me looks out for. If I hear a Moira shift into a fight, you're now my priority target, and I'm going to do everything I can to murder you, right? And I'm most likely going to get the kill because you can't escape, right? And if you shift into danger, then you're also becoming the target efficiently for everyone else in the enemy team, right? So we need to hold it, right? And instead of like, in the case of, say your tank jumps in and makes a bad play, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to replicate another bad play and shift in to try and heal him. Sometimes we have to cut our losses, right? And if we have a brain-dead tank that just doesn't learn, then we should not replicate a bad play. It goes back to something we said before, is that if our teammate makes a bad play, we don't have to make a bad play. Does that make sense? So never engage with shift. Always hold it for mid-fight shenanigans or as an escape. Small little tidbit. You could have actually avoided dying here. When you shifted here, you didn't really pay attention to where you were. But if you shift up and you jump on this last staircase, you have enough airtime to jump above this thing and then hide behind here. You didn't have to shift back into this or get stuck. You could have actually survived. The last jump on Moira's little thingy actually gives you a lot of airtime, and it's enough for you to get over a thing like this. So you need to be a little bit more cordial of where you're going with shift and not just go into a wall. Something I like to say to Moira players and Mercy players specifically is that when you're taking an angle, now I see that we have ads. For fuck's sake. Play the fucking music! Never fucking request that piece of shit ever again, dude. Anyways, okay, so we were talking about, being able to use the shift as a means to escape, right? And go around here. And this is something that we've talked about plenty when it comes to specifically Moira and Mercy players in general, is that when you're taking an angle, regardless whether you're healing or if you're doing damage, you need to have an escape route in your head, right? So when shit hits the fan, you always need to have an idea of where you're going with your cooldowns, right? And trust me when I say this, if you think about the angle that you're taking the fight from and where you want to escape, chances are you're going to survive a lot more in general, right? I can't stress this enough. If you actually have it figured out in your head where you want to go, you'll find yourself survive a lot more, because a lot of these deaths happen because you kind of aren't really sure where you're going. So if you think a little bit more about it when you engage, you'll find yourself survive a lot more. But we'll move on. I just kind of want to point that out because I saw this reoccurring, so...
Focusing fire.
Okay, now we got rest. Ay, ay, ay. Okay, two things. Actually, I'm gonna let chat answer this one. Let's do a little quiz on this. What's going wrong right now? From the point that we got resurrected to the point where we are right now. What is going wrong at this very moment? What went wrong just in this 4-second time frame? Engage with shift. That's one of them, yes. What's the second thing I'm gonna point out? What is the second thing I'm gonna point out? Shifting into the fight is one, yes. What's the second thing? First healing orb being used. That is correct. So, the most useful tool Moira has to her disposal is not the healing orb, right? We've talked about this extensively. The way that you need to look at Moira is that you're applying a lot of pressure and you're healing with your piss in your left hand. That's kind of how we go about things, right? We don't generally use the healing orb unless we have a rooftop or a corner where we can manipulate where the orb is going to where we can use it for a fight. Now, since the enemy team is playing a very divey comp, we're not really going to be able to use the healing orb the way you want it to be used, right? So in situations like these, damaging is way better than actually healing orb. The way I want you to think about the way to play Moira is to never ever want to try and find usages of when to use the healing orb. Instead, what I want you to do is I want you to start engaging with damage orb, but heal with left click if you have to, right? If you're in a tight corridor or in a tight corner, I can show you a tech that you can use that will make you a better healer. But as for a Moira player in general, the most pressure that you can apply with this character is by throwing down a damage orb, right? Not only will you get ultimate way faster, but just look at where your healing orb is going, right? So we shifted from the mid set of stairs, right? We landed on top of these bushes right here. You threw a healing orb down. Now your healing orb is going right there. Who is it healing? Nothing. Who is it going to heal? No one. This could have been a damage orb, and it would have done damage to both Reaper and Winston, and probably put a lot more pressure onto the Winston. And if you really feel the need that you need to heal, then, then you can heal with left click. But, two things. Don't engage with shift ever. Save it for mid-fight shenanigans, or for when to escape. And two, try and use your damage orb a lot more, and heal more with left click. Try and do that a little bit more. I mean, again, healing orb that's doing absolutely nothing. That's a lot better. That is a lot better. See how much more value we got out of that? You got fucking a double kill, you got your ultimate, instead of throwing 2 healing orbs that gave you like 1% on your ultimate. Way better.
A sip for the parched. Your team is
We are close to taking the lead.
Now something really bad happened. Okay. Now this is a very common mistake that a lot of more players actually do. And this is something that I am gonna be very strict about, okay? We always damage orb into the direction of where we're going to be using our ultimate. This is a 101 Moira staple, right? We never dry coalescence. It's just not good enough, right? You have a very powerful tool to your disposal, which is you have an ultimate that both heals and do damage, right? Now, the healing is better than the damage, but there's a reason for that, right? So we always throw a damage orb into the enemy team before we engage with coalescence. We never dry coalescence, right? We never ever do that. So just as a pointer, if you're going to be doing this ultimate, and I don't disagree with it, I think this is a good ultimate, always damage orb before you do it. And if you don't have it off cooldown, we wait. Okay? Never go in dry. Always go in lubed up. Okay.
Enemy team has slain the robot.
Alright.
More swimmers in the deep end of the dark.
Chat, when this VoD is over, can you guys remind me that I am going to show a healing tech with the healing orb? Can you guys remember that? Remember to tell me so I don't forget? I need to show a healing tech after this.
Enemy
The robot is moving the barricade.
On my way, on my way.
your team is still lending a hand.
We pull ahead of the
You're
other team.
welcome.
I know you want a healing orb, don't do it. Damage orb top right. Okay, that is okay. Now I need to be a little bit careful. I know you want to heal. Now, another thing, we've talked about this, right? Quite a bit, but I kind of want to reiterate the point. Now they're tank swapped, right? They no longer have Doomfist or Winston. Now they have a Diva. Now we stop healing orb permanently. We do not use healing orb for whatever reason, right? Because we're never going to get any value out of it unless the Diva is fucking brain dead. So if that's the case, then whatever. I do think it's way better to put a lot of pressure, and now it's time to position our orbs towards the healers. So when the Diva has an aggressive position like this, we kind of want to utilize corners a little bit better, be a little bit more sneaky where we throw our balls. Balls. But for what it's worth, now we need to understand where the Diva is in correlation to where we are standing, right? So instead of throwing healing orbs out in the wind, if this Diva is even like has lukewarm IQ, she's going to eat your healing orbs every single time. So the way we circumvent this is that we're trying to figure out where their supports are, which in this case is on the left side, right? So we want to kind of juggle our balls that way. We want to throw the balls towards their healers, put a lot of pressure on them, and then we want to right-click the Diva as much as possible, heal when we have to, but right-click the Diva as much as possible. So now you're applying pressure not only to the main tank, but you're also doing damage to the supports in the backline, right? So by throwing healing orbs on the wind like this, even if the Diva doesn't eat them, you're not getting enough value, right? You're getting zero value out of your healing orbs. So we need to utilize our damage orbs way, way more. Because Moira is a character that can apply a lot of pressure in short bursts, right? And we need to utilize that. So when the Diva is up front, close and personal like this, right-clicking her and throwing orbs at their supports is the way to do this. Not throwing healing orbs and hoping that it'll stick, and definitely not spending time healing an Echo here when the Mercy's pocketing. I don't disagree with this play. I just think that we could be using our damage orbs way more. Another healing orb.
Moving the robot.
Ah, another dry one. Okay. Okay. I mean, decent. So I do want to talk about the good things too. I'm not just here to make you feel like you're a fucking garbage player. I want to talk about the good things too, right? And the one thing I want to mention is the most important part about this is that you're actually crouching where you're going and you're not really walking in a straight line. Usually when I watch people do things like this, I guess the more impressive thing that I like is that when you're going from point A to point B, you're actually and actively trying to dodge things and you're crouch walking even though you're not being focused. This is something that a lot of people don't do. And I actually like that you're doing this without me having to tell you to do it. A lot of the time, people will try and heal something in their team and they will basically just go, straight forward, right? And during that time, they become really easy targets. And right now, from what I'm seeing, is that you're actively dodging, you're crouch walking, you're not jumping, which is something a lot of people do. So I kind of want to point out the good things as well. So this is good.
Ash.
Almost ready. My ultimate is fully charged.
Jumping bad?
Ready.
It's a good question, but let me tell you this. It has never been easier for me to kill anyone who jumps, right? I talk about this very extensively on my stream. Jumping against anyone who's half decent at hit scan makes you a much easier target. When you jump with any character in the game, you become predictable. Every character in the game falls at the same speed. Every character falls in the same arc, right? So you're actually inactively making it much easier for a semi-decent hit scan player to actually kill you. There are a couple things we don't do. We don't jump against Ashe. We don't jump against Cole. We don't jump against Widow. And, you know, at some ranges, we don't jump against Hanzo. If we, as a support player, want to survive and we want to move from point A to point B, we crouch spam, right? We crouch spam, AD spam, whatever we have to do, but we never, ever jump, right? I can't tell you how many times, like, an Ana player in GM1 jumps at the last arc, and I'm just like, oh, okay. And I just get a free kill, right? And the reality is, if they didn't jump and they, you know, they crouch walked instead, they probably would have survived. So inherently, I try and tell every single player, no matter who they are, what rank they're in, do not jump, all right? Because if you get into the habit of jumping, that's going to be a thing that's going to be really hard to break for you as you start ranking up. Say on the offset that average Joe that we VoD reviewed all of a sudden starts climbing because we gave him tips, right? And if he's constantly jumping, he's going to find out pretty, you know, the hard reality is the more that he ranks up, the more he's going to die because of it. So I try and break that habit straight away anyway. So I think jumping in this game is really bad and it's too predictable.
I understand. Verstanden.
Edge.
I've dealt with cynics before.
I unbinded my space key when I stopped jumping when I got to Masters.
A taste of poison. Mending you.
Unironically, I think Moira has one of the best voice acting in the entire game chat. She actually sounds like a psychopath scientist. Like, she actually has one of the best voice acting in the entire game. Another dry coalescence. Not good. Doing a pretty good job of keeping your team alive, though. Don't healing orb. Oh. That Ashe is fucking panicking. Again, we don't want to engage. I mean, chat, a lot of the feedback that I have right now is more or less the same reoccurring thing over and over again. So I'm gonna, you know, if it happens like 20 times, I'm just gonna keep it for the end of the VoD. good pressure.
Pflicht ist nicht getan.
Possession of the robot.
Why is she pissing on people? Why are you king shaming? We don't king shame around here. Stare her down, chat. Stare her down. Imagine king shaming in 2023, dude. Imagine. I mean, you're doing a pretty good job keeping your doofus up, all things considered. It's actually quite incredible, but... Suck his dick! Suck it! I'm gonna be honest, I'm getting a little bit dizzy watching this. A little bit. We threw the orb to the left and we coalesced right. What the fuck? Oh, we're dead. We're alive. This is fucking chaos. What the actual fuck is going on, dude? Holy shit. What the fuck is going on, dude? What the fuck? This is still going. What is happening? What the fuck? Eat his ass! Yeah! How are you still alive? What the fuck? Oh no, he got hit in the charcuterie.
Good way. Good way.
Unassailable prowess.
That last 2 minutes were literally the same fight. Dude, that last fight literally went on for like 2 straight minutes. Holy shit. Okay. So I think the priority of things I want you to work on, I think we really need to stop shifting into fights. I think that's the number one thing. Really need to stop shifting into fights. I know it's a habit, but if on the offset that you start ranking up and you do way better, that's going to get you punished more than anything else. Okay? So we need to stop doing that, like permanently. That should never be a thing. It's okay sometimes to do it to try and get like a main tank who's like a little bit off to try and get a heal off or whatever. That's completely fine, but we should never engage into fights like these. It should be a mid-fight thing or it should be an escape thing. And also, when you take a certain angle from a fight, I want you to inherently in your head start figuring out if shit goes haywire and it goes south real quick. I want you to start figuring out a thing in your head where, you know, like kind of like an escape route, right? I don't care which map it is. I don't care which point it is or what kind of game mode you're playing. From now on, when you engage from a certain angle, I want you to think about where you want to run if things go wrong, right? And that's the number one thing I'm going to point out. Number two, almost this entire game, we do what's called a dry coalescence, right? And we talked about this a little bit, but I'm going to reiterate the point because I feel like it's extremely important. Never, ever, ever do a dry coalescence, right? Instead, what I want you to do is that I want you to throw a damage orb straight into their fucking faces and then engage with coalescence, so you double dip from the damage from the orb and the coalescence itself, right? Coalescence on its own isn't really strong enough to get anything done, but if you do throw a damage orb in there and it's just like melding their supports in their face, and then you pair up a coalescence with that, you'll find out that you do a lot more DPS, okay? That's one thing I want to point out. So if you're in a situation where you feel like you have a good coalescence and you're like 2 seconds off the orb, I want you to actually wait for the orb to come off cooldown before you do it, okay? So from now on, we do damage orb paired up with coalescence if we have to, and we wait. I mean, sometimes there might be a situation where you feel like you have to use coalescence for the sake of healing. That's okay, but generally speaking, this entire game, we didn't do a single like combo coalescence at all, and we need to start doing that. The third thing, you need to sort of understand, and I'm going to go into practice range for this because I feel like it's extreme. What? The fuck was that? I'm going to show you two things, okay? So, when we play Moira, right, there is this thing where people like to use the healing orb, right? And the main issue, what I saw from basically the entire game, is that you'll do something like this, right? You do something like this. You'll come in shift, and you just do something like that, right? Maybe that's a bad example. Let's wait for the boss to come back up. Okay, so basically we'll do something like, you know, we'll shift in, the bots will spawn, we have a target, and we do this, right? Okay, we might have healed one of them for like 70 HP, and now our healing orb just flew up into the distance and we're getting 0 value, right? This goes against my better judgment, but the way Moira should be healing targets is with her left click, right? Left click is very strong because it's AoE and it goes through targets, so you do a lot more healing that way. And I think that your orb should, to at least 90% of the time, should try and be damage, right? Because Moira is good at applying pressure, and that's the way she wins fights, right? You overwhelm the enemy team. You do, you know, the damage is so much that they don't really have a way to circumvent it, and that's how you win fights with Moira, right? You need to be almost like pixel perfect with how you engage with it. Because like right now, you're doing something like this, right? You go around the corner, you throw a healing orb down, and then, okay. What did we get? We got 4% ultimate charge. Now watch how much we get from doing this instead, right? 4% versus what? 6%? That's extra 6%. That extra 2%, it does add up, right? And that's just 2 targets, or it's just 2 targets, right? But the point I want to make is that the way we utilize healing orb when it comes to Moira is that we want to find close corridors, maybe rooftops like this or whatever. We want to find like the closest thing. Like this is a good example. Say we're fighting on any map and we have a roof on top of our head, right? Instead of doing something like, you know, we shift in and we kind of do something like this and we hope for the best, the way you need to think about the healing orb, you need to like completely rewire your brain of when to use healing orb. If you don't have a roof above your head and you can't use a tech like this, by the way, this will reach whoever's standing in the doorway. If you can't do this, you don't ever want to use your healing orb, right? The healing orb is never ever going to be worth it unless you can do something like this, right? And if you can't, then we opt in for left click, right? And if you can't do that, or left click, we opt in for a damage orb. You see what I'm saying? Because on the offset that you're throwing a healing orb right after you come out of shift, you do something like this, right? You would have done the same amount of healing as left clicking, and that could have been a damage orb instead. You see what I'm saying? Another thing that didn't really happen that game is that you'll throw an orb like this, and then you'll wait, and then you'll coalescence when your orb is off cooldown. We need to stop doing that permanently. Wait, is this actually flat? Can I do this? Oh, there you go. You need to do something like that instead. And if you can't find a way to do so, you can also do it by, you know, going like split, you know, something like this, right? Hold on, let me see. Boom. That's way better, right? And this will get so much more value out of your healing orb, so you need to be a little bit smarter with how you use it. But if you're going to use coalescence from now on, we do a damage orb, and then we do it. Never ever do a dry coalescence. Does that make sense?
All in vain.
And remember, this kind of positioning with healing orb.
Touched.
Now this is healing.
What is it now?
That's a lot of healing. Chat, do you feel like that was fair?
A time to heal
Listen,
and a time
there is a lot of feedback that I can give you, but I think it can get to a point where there's just so much that I can tell you what you need to get better at that I feel like it's better to keep it like a top 3 thing. And the 3 things I mentioned to you should be more than enough for you to kind of like think a little bit different on how you play and how you engage in team fights and stuff. And I do think that me telling you too many things is just going to be like, you're going to spread out everything onto like 50 different things and you're not going to be good enough on them in time, right? So I'd rather give you these 3 things. I want you to focus on them. I would love to see you provide me with a VoD review in the future to see how you kind of like integrated into it. The good things that I feel like you did was like, you never really go from point A to point B in a straight line. If you want to go somewhere, it feels to me like you're actually like actively thinking about how to avoid damage. That's a very good thing. So you're already ahead in terms of like how you do that. Another thing I want to point out is that we also sometimes, in my opinion, and I'm kind of against giving you this tip, but it's such a small one that I kind of want to bring it out anyways. Something that we did not do at all the entire game is that when you do opt in to do a damage orb, you'll see a target. You don't really care where you are on the map. You'll kind of do something like this, right? The way I want you to think about the damage orb is that if nothing is happening, nothing at all, say that you're pushing the robot or you have the point or whatever, what I want you to start thinking about is like, think about ways where the orb can sort of work as an area of denial instead, right? Inherently, people in this game will not walk towards danger, right? They will not walk towards where there's damage coming in, right? Inherently. And you should start using the tool more of an area denial thing when nothing's going on. So like if there's something, you know, if they're coming out of spawn and they're high ground, do something like this instead, preemptively, to just make them reconsider going that direction, right? So I want to point that out. And that's everything I got for you.